Chapter 988. Overlord Sword Technique. The starting price is 100,000 gold coins. Each bid must be at least 1,000 gold coins. Begin now. As Tong Jingshua's voice fell, the auction hall also paused for a moment, but then the bids began to rise one after another. 110,000 gold coins, 120,000 gold coins, 150,000 gold coins. Every time a voice sounded, it would be immediately drowned out by a voice with a higher price. The three great clans did not make a sound. These were just small squabbles. In the end, it was still a competition between the three great clans. 250,000 gold coins. When a middle-aged man in the hall called out the price of 250,000 gold coins, many people cried out in surprise. There were very few people who could take out 250,000 gold coins in one go. Feeling some people's shocked gazes, the middle-aged man revealed a proud expression. It was obvious that he enjoyed these gazes very much. 250,000. Are there any higher bids? Tong Jingshua followed. However, when the man called out 250,000 gold coins, everyone in the hall had already chosen to give up. This price was already sky-high for them. After seeing that no one made a sound, the man's face became even more proud. He was rich. Di Baichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder with his big hand. The two of them looked very calm. Next, it was time for the three great clans to make a move. 300,000 gold coins. Lu Hongshan's voice was the first to ring out. 300,000 gold coins. Young Master Lu bids 300,000 gold coins. Tong Jingshua followed. He understood that once Lu Hongshan made a bid, the other two great clans would follow closely behind. The middle-aged man, who was originally very proud, sat down dejectedly after hearing Lu Hongshan raise the price by 50,000 gold coins. 250,000 gold coins was already his limit. He could not take out any more, but it was nothing to the Lu family. Looking at the middle-aged man's appearance, no one mocked him. This was the difference between an ordinary person and the three great clans. This middle-aged man's financial resources were already very impressive. At least, compared to them, it was unknown how much better. 400,000 gold coins. Xie Qi suddenly spoke out. With just this one word, he raised the price to 400,000. Everyone present couldn't help but be shocked. The extent of this price increase was simply too shocking. In the VIP box, Xie Qi's face was gloomy. Xie Honglang hadn't returned yet, and he didn't have much money left. His only solution was to abruptly raise the price to intimidate others. Perhaps when the others saw that he was determined to obtain the Overlord Sword Art, they would give up on fighting for it. This was a psychological tactic. Sure enough, all the guests present were shocked by Xie Qi's arrogance. The Xie family is really rich now. 400,000 in one go. This is really incomparable. Did the Xie family get some help recently? First, he had a falling out with the Yuan clan, and now he's spending so much money in this auction. Previously, in order to annoy Bailey Hongzhuang, he even spent 200,000 gold coins just to buy a parchment scroll. I don't know. I haven't received any news recently. Could it be that I'm not well informed? Chapter 989. Compared to the confused crowd, Yuan Hongyang and Lu Hongshan were very calm. They knew the Xie clan's current situation very well. It was impossible for them to have outside help. The reason why Xie Qi did this was to intimidate them. He raised the price to 400,000 in one go to show that he was determined to obtain this profound level martial skill. At the same time, it also gave people a feeling of being rich and overbearing. If this method was used on unfamiliar people, it was very likely to have a certain effect. But for people like them who knew each other well, there was no effect at all. Xie Qi had just used up 200,000 gold coins. Everyone knew that Xie Honglang's Qingkuan pouch was taken away by Bailey Hongzhuang. Among the three great clans, the Xie clan was the weakest. Just from Xie Honglang's hurried departure from the auction house, it was obvious that he had returned home to seek financial support. 400,000 gold coins was not enough to make them feel afraid. Hearing Xie Qi's bid, Yuan Hongyang's smile widened. I'm afraid Yuan Hongyang only has 400,000 gold coins now. Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate. Xie Qi's funds were obviously not as good as theirs, but he still used 200,000 gold coins on the parchment scroll. How stupid. Yuan Liqing also smiled and nodded. That should be the case. If he had more money, he would have bid a higher price instead of 400,000. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen smiled faintly. Xie Qi's current actions were tantamount to revealing 300 taels of silver. They had a thorough understanding of Xie Qi's wealth. Speaking of which, the Yuan clan was not only stronger than the Xie clan. Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Qingxua were also much more capable than the Xie clan's successor. The next competition would be between the Yuan clan and the Lu clan. They believed that Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Qingxua would have a way. 450,000 gold coins. Yuan Hongyang's voice slowly rang out. This was the first time he had bid since the start of the auction. After hearing Yuan Hongyang's words, Xie Qi's face instantly turned pale. It was impossible for him to use this method to achieve his goal. He had brought a total of 600,000 gold coins this time, and now he only had 400,000 gold coins left. He no longer had the capital to compete. Thinking of this, Xie Qi became even more furious. If Xie Honglang still did not appear, he would definitely not let Xie Honglang off. On the other side, Lu Hongshan had also determined the true situation of the Xie family. It was only 600,000 gold coins. Even if Xie Qi did not bid for the parchment scroll with 200,000 gold coins, 600,000 gold coins was still not enough to compete with him. Lu Hongshan was not surprised by this. After all, the Xie family had invested a lot on the 2 stalks of snowdragon grass. It was normal that they did not have enough money now. 460,000 gold coins. Lu Hongshan immediately said. 470,000 gold coins. Yuan Hongyang spoke without hesitation. He already had a bottom line in his heart when he came to participate in this auction. As long as this bottom line was not exceeded, he would not hesitate to raise the price. 500,000 gold coins. Lu Hongshan shouted again. 510,000 gold coins. Yuan Hongyang and Lu Hongshan kept raising the price. They were both trying to figure out what the highest price in each other's hearts was. Compared to the Yuan family and Lu family's continuous bids, the Xie family's box fell into silence. Chapter 990. Seeing this scene, the guests in the hall all revealed a puzzled expression. Isn't young Master Xie determined to get it? Why didn't he bid after the first time? I don't know. Could it be that he's waiting for the last bid? You're thinking too much. In my opinion, young Master Xie has no money at all. Hearing this, the crowd looked at each other. Could it be that the dignified Xie family had only prepared so little money to bid for the profound level martial skill? For a moment, the crowd found it funny. They didn't know what happened to young Master Xie recently. He kept making a fool of himself and became the hot topic of discussion. Xie Qi could vaguely hear some of the other people's discussion. His already ugly face became gloomy. This bunch of bastards, how dare they talk about him like that? He felt that since he was born, he had never suffered such a big loss. His dark eyes slowly filled with malice. The reason why he had fallen to this point was all because of Bailey Hongzhuang and these 2 outsiders. Once this auction was over, he would definitely find an expert to take the lives of these 2 people. When that time came, he would like to see who would dare to laugh at him like this. Just as Xie Qi made up his mind, Xie Honglang appeared in the VIP box. Big brother, I'm back. Seeing Xie Honglang finally appear, Xie Qi's face turned ugly. Where did you go? Why did you take so long to come back? Do you deliberately want to see me lose face here? Xie Honglang had racked his brains in the family to gather some money. He didn't expect to be scolded by Xie Qi as soon as he came back. His face was a little ugly. However, after seeing Xie Qi's furious expression, he temporarily put aside the unhappiness in his heart. Big brother, this is the 200,000 gold coins raised by the family, Xie Honglang said. Xie Qi's face looked better. He took the Qinghuan bag and said, that's more like it. In the next moment, Xie Qi's voice rang out again. 600,000. Big brother? Seeing Xie Qi directly call out all the bids, Xie Honglang couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. It was too late to stop him. Calling out all the prices at once wasn't a technique for auctioning. Auctions often required a certain level of skill. If one did not use their brains, they would suffer a great loss. Now the Yuan family and the Lu family's increments were getting smaller and smaller. Obviously, they didn't want to raise the price too high. In the end, the auction house would be the one benefiting. However, Xie Qi's sudden announcement of the price had undoubtedly broken the current situation. Moreover, the Yuan clan and the Lu clan would know that this was all the Xie clan had. It could be said that they had already failed. When they heard Xie Qi's bid again, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. They thought that the Xie family had completely withdrawn from this competition. Xie Honglang is back, Yuan Liqing said slowly. She had been paying attention to the outside, so when Xie Honglang returned, she already knew. Hearing this, Yuan Hongyang couldn't help but chuckle. Looks like Xie Honglang brought back 200,000 gold coins. This time, the Xie clan really went all out for this profound level martial skill. Chapter 991. We can completely ignore the Xia family this time, but we don't know how much money the Lu family has prepared. Yuan Liqing pondered. The Lu family had never been as high profile as the Xia family, but their strength was not weak. She did not know how much gold they had prepared this time, so she did not have 100% confidence. 601,000 gold coins. Xie Qi's bid did not cause Yuan Hongyang to hesitate, and his voice rang out immediately after. When Xie Qi saw that Yuan Hongyang had directly exceeded his bid, he slumped into his chair. Even if he took out all of his capital, he still could not win it. Why did the family take out so little money? Don't you have anything else? Xie Qi glared fiercely at Xie Honglang, only feeling that he had lost face for not being able to win the profound level martial skill. Xie Honglang helplessly shook his head. The family's liquid funds are not much, and it is already very difficult to take out so much money. If you directly bid all the prices like this, it will be very difficult to win it. If I don't bid like this, how can I bid? Xie Qi looked at Xie Honglang with disgust. According to what you said, you are better at bidding than me? Big brother, I don't mean that, but if you bid like this, it will easily let others know where our bottom line is. Xie Honglang frowned as he explained. He only felt that Xie Qi was becoming more and more arrogant, as if he was the only one who was right. Since you are so powerful, why don't I also give you the identity of the Xie family's successor? Xie Qi narrowed his eyes, looking at Xie Honglang with a cold gaze. He had long known that Xie Honglang was not so obedient. Previously, Xie Honglang could not find an opportunity, and now he wanted to use this opportunity to attack him. Hearing Xie Qi's words, Xie Honglang could not help but be stunned and quickly waved his hand. Big brother, you misunderstood me. Misunderstood? Xie Qi sneered but no longer looked at Xie Honglang. You just do your part and don't even think about other things that don't belong to you. Xie Honglang's heart sank. He had never had any other thoughts, but now Xie Qi's aggressiveness was becoming more and more unbearable. For a time, only Yuan Hongyang and Lu Hongshan were bidding for the profound level martial skill, but the range of the price increase was obviously much smaller. 700,000 gold coins. Yuan Hongyang spoke again. His handsome face was no longer as indifferent as before. Instead, it was dyed with a trace of seriousness. The current price was not far from the highest price they had in mind. However, the Lu family was still chasing after them and had no intention of giving up. This made him feel helpless. 701,000 gold coins. Lu Hongshan's expression was still serious. The bidding had reached its climax, but the Yuan family was not willing to back down. He had set the price at 750,000 gold coins, and it was getting closer and closer. This time the Lu family has made great preparations. What should we do? Yuan Liqing frowned. Before they left, Yuan Qingxua had already told them that they had to find a way to get this martial arts technique. It was too important. However, now that things had come to this, they no longer had absolute confidence. Forget it, let's just take a gamble. A look of determination appeared in Yuan Hongyang's eyes. In the next moment his voice rang out again. Chapter 992. 750,000 gold coins. This was already the highest price the Yuan family could offer. If the price went any higher, it wouldn't be worth it for them. He wanted to take a gamble. If the Lu family offered a price higher than 750,000 gold coins, then he could only give up. Lu Hongshan was stunned for a moment after hearing Yuan Hongyang's bid. His face was tinged with helplessness. He didn't expect that he and Yuan Hongyang would have the same bottom line. However, Yuan Hongyang was the first to bid, which made him feel even more helpless. 750,000 gold coins. Second young Master Yuan has bid 750,000 gold coins. Is there a higher bid? Tong Jingshua asked. Everyone's gaze fell on Lu Hongshan's box. However, Lu Hongshan didn't bid again. 750,000 gold coins going once. 750,000 gold coins going twice. 750,000 gold coins going thrice. Bang. Tong Jingshua slammed his hammer. Congratulations, second young Master Yuan. This black-level martial art technique, Overlord Sword Art, belongs to you. Tong Jingshua's face was full of smiles. He immediately instructed the female attendant to send the martial art technique to Yuan Hongyang's VIP box. The amount of transactions in this auction had far exceeded his expectations. It was simply too big of a surprise for him. Yuan Hongyang heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't expect that he would successfully bid for the Overlord Sword Art in the end. At this moment he relaxed and sat down. Only then did he realize that his back was sweating profusely. The previous bid had really made him nervous. Yuan Liqing's face bloomed with an excited smile. Haha, we finally got it. Yuan Hongyang also smiled happily. Yes, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Congratulations. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and congratulated Yuan Hongyang. Seeing that Yuan Hongyang had successfully bid for the martial art technique, she was also happy for him from the bottom of her heart. Many thanks. Yuan Hongyang was full of smiles. If you hadn't let Xie Qi bid for the parchment scroll with 200,000 gold coins, I wouldn't have been able to successfully bid for this black-level martial art technique. At this moment, Yuan Hongyang also realized that if it weren't for Bailey Hongzhuang's help in making Xie Qi waste 200,000 gold coins, he wouldn't have been able to bid for the martial art technique. This time, the Xie family took out a total of 800,000 gold coins to bid. Fortunately, the Xie family had an idiot like Xie Qi, which saved them a lot of trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I was just doing it in passing. Originally, she did not intend to compete with Xie Qi on this matter. It was just that Xie Qi wanted to find trouble with her. No matter what, you've done us a great favor. The smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips widened, and her beautiful face became even more alluring. The auction is over. Let's go back, Di Beichen said slowly. They still had other things to do. Hearing this, Yuan Hongyang nodded slightly. All right, let's go. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked out of the private room, the people from the Xie family and the Lu family also walked out. The VIP private room they were in was not on the same path as the people in the main hall, so there was never a situation of crowding. Xie Qi's expression was the ugliest. He gloomily glared at Bailey Hongzhuang, and the hatred in his eyes was as if he wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Humph. Chapter 993. However, in the face of Xie Qi's cold snort, Bailey Hongzhuang, Yuan Hongyang, and the rest did not pay any attention to him. Lu Hongshan's handsome eyes were filled with ridicule. This Xie Qi's conduct was really lacking in magnanimity. As the successor of the Xie family, he did not have the slightest bit of tolerance. In a situation where he had failed, he was still so dismissive. It was unavoidable that others would sneer at him. Xie Qi snorted coldly and strode away. Clearly he was unwilling to speak with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Xie Hongleng looked at the crowd helplessly before his gaze finally fell on Lu Xuerong. Lu Xuerong's red lips opened slightly. She wanted to say something but hesitated. Her elder brother was beside her and it was not convenient for her to speak now. Xie Hongleng cast an apologetic look at Lu Xuerong and immediately left with Xie Qi. After Xie Qi and Xie Hongleng left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest walked in front of Lu Hongshan. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen stood behind them. They had no intention of interfering in the battle between the three families. After informing Yuan Liqing, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen took the lead to leave the auction house. This was because they still had things to do. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen only exchanged glances. Di Beichen already understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. Hongzhuang was determined to obtain the parchment scroll. However, Xie Qi did not know what was good for him and insisted on interfering. Thus, they could only forcibly obtain the parchment scroll. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. She had wanted to use a civilized method to obtain the parchment scroll. Since Xie Qi was seeking his own death, she would fulfill his wish. After Xie Qi and Xie Hongleng walked out of the auction house, Xie Qi's face revealed an impatient expression. You go back first. I'll go back later. He understood that once he returned, his family would definitely reprimand him for what had happened at the auction, so he didn't want to go back for the time being. Xie Hongleng frowned, looking hesitant. Brother, our clansmen are waiting for our news. We should go back first. Are you the eldest brother or am I the eldest brother? Xie Qi's anger surged and his words became more and more impolite. I told you to go back first, don't you understand? Xie Hongleng was slightly startled. He looked at Xie Qi's back as he turned around and left. He pondered for a moment but in the end he didn't chase after him. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen sighed when they saw this scene. Xie Qi was really destined to die today. The two of them followed Xie Qi without hesitation, waiting for a slightly concealed place to make their move. However, he did not expect Xie Qi to walk directly into the brothel. He was in a bad mood and needed to vent his anger here. Xie Qi hugged a brothel girl and walked towards the supplies. Before they even entered the door, Xie Qi's hands were already unable to restrain themselves from touching the girl. The girl smiled coquettishly. Young Master Xie, don't be so impatient. Listening to the girl's provocative words, Xie Qi couldn't help but quicken his pace and push open the door. However, when Xie Qi walked into the room, his originally smiling face suddenly turned pale. Shocked, he looked at Di Beichen who had suddenly appeared in front of him and said, Why are you here? Bailey Hongzhuang knocked the girl out and threw her aside before she could see clearly what was going on in the room. Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. She didn't like to kill innocent people. Chapter 994. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xie Qi could not help but retreat. He had already realized that the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely not a good thing. Could it be that they wanted to take his life? At the thought of this, Xie Qi's face became paler and paler. He wanted to wait until he went back to find someone to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang, but he didn't expect the speed of these two to be so fast. What do you want to do? Xie Qi forced himself to stay calm. This is Jianghu City. If you dare to attack me, you will not be able to leave alive. You have to think carefully. Bailey Hongzhuang's sneer deepened. Coincidentally, we also want to try. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Xie Qi had already made up their minds, Xie Qi's eyes became vicious. It won't be that easy for you to kill me. As soon as he finished speaking, the origin energy in Xie Qi's body surged. Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Xie Qi's cultivation was at the 5th level of the Red Realm. However, this strength was obviously not enough for her and Di Beichen. Bang! Just as the origin energy in Xie Qi's body surged out, Di Beichen made his move. Di Beichen's figure flew and appeared in front of Xie Qi in an instant. His right hand mercilessly slapped towards Xie Qi's dantian. With only a slight sound, Xie Qi was like a deflated balloon. The essence energy that was originally gushing out dissipated completely in an instant. At the same time, Xie Qi's face turned red. His hands quickly covered his abdomen as if he was in great pain. Xie Qi's eyes widened. His eyes were filled with disbelief and anger. He could not believe that Di Beichen had destroyed his dantian with one move. When Di Beichen made his move, he instinctively wanted to dodge. However, Di Beichen was too fast. It was too late for him to dodge. Just by this move, he already understood that Di Beichen's strength was definitely not something he could compare with. Most importantly, without his strength, he would be worthless in the Xie family. You guys. Xie Qi looked at Di Beichen and Di Beichen with a pained expression. The raging fury in his eyes could not wait to burn Di Beichen and Di Beichen into ashes. How dare you treat me like this? The Xie clan will never let you off. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent and looked at Xie Qi mockingly. Until now, you still haven't seen the situation clearly? From today onwards, you, Xie Qi, will completely disappear from this world. So what if the Xie family suspects us? You're just a dead man. Would the Xie clan do anything for you? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with sarcasm. Xie Qi was really full of himself. One had to know that for the family, living geniuses were the most important. Although they felt sorry for the dead geniuses, it was not worth it for them to pay too much. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xie Qi's face became even paler. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen would actually want to kill him. After noticing Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's indifference, he felt that death was getting closer and closer to him. All of his arrogance disappeared in an instant. The complacent look on Xie Qi's face also disappeared. I know I was wrong. Please, I beg you, don't kill me. Xie Qi was completely flustered. He no longer cared about the pain of his dantian's rupture and the burning hatred in his heart. He hurriedly knelt in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Please, I beg you, let me go. I will never tell anyone about this. Chapter 995. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen came out, Bailey Hongzhuang already had a Chenghuan pouch in her hands. Not only was there the parchment scroll that she was interested in, there was also the 600,000 gold coins in Xie Qi's hands. Speaking of which, she had earned quite a bit from this trip. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes shone brightly. They did not expect Xie Qi to give them so many gold coins before his death. It was really good. Originally, their disgust towards Xie Qi dissipated with Xie Qi's death and the large amount of gold coins. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen returned to the Yuan clan. However, all the important members of the Yuan clan were discussing in the discussion hall. Obviously, the Yuan clan's success in the auction of the Overlord Sword technique was something worth celebrating. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen naturally did not disturb them and directly returned to their rooms to cultivate. Night slowly fell and the entire Jianghu city fell into darkness. However, the pure white snow still reflected the bright light of the night. Compared to the Yuan clan's joy and the Lu clan's calmness, the Xie clan was in a state of anxiety. After Xie Honglang returned to the clan, he told his clansmen that Xie Qi was in a bad mood and would be back later. At first, the Xie clan did not take it to heart. This was something that Xie Qi often did, and to them it was normal. However, as time passed, they felt that something was strange. Although Xie Honglang was usually willful, he would not act so recklessly. The Xie clan immediately sent people out to search for Xie Qi. However, after searching for a long time, they did not know that anyone had seen Xie Qi. In the end, they found out about Xie Qi in the brothel. After knowing this, the Xie clan's patriarch flew into a rage. It was fine if he made a fool of himself at the auction, but now he actually dared to go to the brothel to have fun? The Xie clan's patriarch immediately ordered people to bring Xie Qi back. He wanted to properly teach this unfilial son a lesson. However, the Xie clan's people only found the unconscious girl in the brothel. Xie Qi was nowhere to be found. This caused the entire Xie clan to be extremely shocked. Not to mention that Xie Qi was the successor of the Xie clan, he also had 600,000 gold coins on him. If he disappeared like this, it would be a huge blow to the entire Xie clan. The Xie family's large-scale search for Xie Qi naturally couldn't escape the attention of the Yuan family and the Lu family. Therefore, after Xie Qi disappeared, the Yuan family and the Lu family already knew the news. Xie Qi is missing? Yuan Hongyang frowned slightly. He couldn't help but think about how Di Baichen and Di Baichen had left first. Could this have been the doing of Di Baichen and Di Baichen? Although this was just a guess and Yuan Hongyang didn't have any evidence, once this thought surfaced, it couldn't be erased. Because, to be able to do this in the origin martial city without anyone noticing, it should only be Bailey Hongzhuang and Li Chia. Yuan Liqing and Yuan Qingshua were smart people. Even if they knew the answer, they wouldn't say it out loud. First of all, Bailey Hongzhuang and Li Chia were their friends. Second of all, Xie Qi's death was also quite beneficial to them. Di Baichen and Li Chia were with you all this time, right? Yuan Qingshua asked. Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Liqing nodded without hesitation. That's right. After the auction ended, we came back together. They were with us all this time. Chapter 996. Big Brother, now that the Xie clan has lost Xie Qi, the clan will definitely fall into chaos. In addition, the Xie clan's liquid funds are already lacking. This is an opportunity for us. Yuan Hongyang's eyes shone brightly. He felt that the two Bailey Hongzhuang duo that he met by chance were their lucky stars. Bailey Hongzhuang duo had only been in Yuanwu City for a few days, but they actually managed to turn the Xie clan into such a state. This was really unexpected and gave them an excellent opportunity. Yuan Qingshua nodded slightly. He understood the meaning of Yuan Hongyang's words. As the head of the clan, he had already seen through many things. This was indeed a good opportunity for them, but they still needed to think carefully about how to act. After the Lu clan received this news, they were also very surprised. Lu Xuerong's eyes were filled with doubt. Big Brother, why did the young master of the Xie clan suddenly disappear? It's definitely not him who disappeared, but someone else who made him disappear. Lu Hongshan's expression was unfathomable. This answer was not hard to guess, but no one had any evidence. Speaking of which, these two friends of the Yuan clan were really extraordinary people. In Yuanwu City, they were actually able to get rid of Xie Qi without anyone noticing. Moreover, if Xie Qi's strength was not weak, then he could only blame himself for not having good eyesight. If Xie Qi was like Xie Honglang and did not offend these two people after knowing how strong they were, then he would not have lost his life. The Xie clan's men continuously searched the entire Yuanwu city. However, the brothel was the place where Xie Qi finally appeared. After that, there were no other traces of Xie Qi. Although they did not see Xie Qi's corpse, the Xie clan did not have high expectations. They were afraid that the possibility of him dying was very high. Losing a successor was already unbearable for the Xie clan, and the extremely important 600,000 gold coins had also disappeared. This made the Xie clan, who was already unable to bear the burden, even worse. The instigators of this matter, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen, were very indifferent. They were minding their own business and cultivating. With the help of the medicine, Bailey Hongzhuang's jade body was also rapidly improving. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the map from the second parchment scroll, but even after Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen studied it, they still couldn't figure out what the map was referring to. However, the map did depict the entrance. At least, Bailey Hongzhuang knew the approximate location. As for the rest, they would have to wait until the last two pieces of the map were gathered together. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen got up early to bid farewell to Yuan Hongyang and the others. They had already stayed in Origin Martial City for a few days, and it was time to head to the Bloodground Abyss. Yuan Hongyang and the others tried to persuade them to stay, but they also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen's purpose in coming to the Snow Country was the Bloodground Abyss, so they did not force them. Young Master D. Miss Bailey, when you return from the Bloodground Abyss, come back and visit us. We can also help you arrange for the wyverns to return to the Sky Swallow Kingdom. Yuan Hongyang said with a smile. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded, okay. They indeed had to pass through Origin Martial City to return to the Sky Swallow Kingdom. After all, the closest city to the Bloodground Abyss with flying beasts was Origin Martial City. Chapter 997. When the members of the Xie family knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had left just like that, their expressions were extremely unsightly. Even though they did not have any evidence, they were certain that Xie Qi's disappearance was definitely related to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, the Xie family's business affairs had already made them extremely busy, and they were afraid that the Yuan family would use this opportunity to deal with them. If they were to make a move against Bailey Hongzhuang and the others now, it would only give the Yuan family an excuse to deal with them. Therefore they could only swallow their anger. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen left, Yuan Qingshua and Yuan Hongyang looked at each other. Next they should prepare to deal with the Xie family. The Bloodground Abyss was still some distance away from Yuanwu City. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others hurried north, but found that the road was filled with broken walls and dilapidated walls. They could vaguely see the outline of a city. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with surprise. She looked around in astonishment and said, "This used to be a city?" Di Beichen nodded slightly. Back then this was also a city of Snow Origin country. However, after the Bloodground Abyss appeared, the number of people living here became fewer and fewer, and then gradually disappeared. Originally, Yuanwu City was not the northernmost city of Snow Origin country, but now, it has become the northernmost city. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. So there was such a thing. So that's how it is. It seems that this is also a very long history. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Time had passed, and from the broken walls, it could be seen that many years had passed. There are many vicious and evil people in the Bloodground Abyss. Back then, the citizens of the city who were close to the Bloodground Abyss were unlucky and suffered many casualties. It is because of this that the Bloodground Abyss has become a rather special region. There are no cities around it. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The Bloody Ground Abyss was too dangerous. If ordinary people were to approach it, it would be a dead end. After a few days of hurrying on the road, Bailey Hongzhuang saw a city in the distance, and her bright black phoenix eyes suddenly shone with a bright light. This city was also covered in white snow. However, from afar it actually appeared to be blood red. It was somewhat horrifying, but it also had a kind of demonic beauty. Is that the Bloodground Abyss? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the red city in the distance and asked. Di Beichen also looked into the distance and smiled. That's right. That's the Bloodground Abyss. Wife, are you mentally prepared? Di Beichen turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Along the way he had told Hongzhuang a lot about the Bloody Ground Abyss, hoping that Hongzhuang would be mentally prepared. Otherwise, once they entered and were frightened, they could only return empty-handed. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Don't worry, my mental fortitude is not that bad. In her previous life she had experienced a lot of bloodshed. She just didn't tell Di Beichen. She had already made sufficient mental preparations. No matter how cruel the situation was, she would not be afraid. Di Beichen nodded slightly. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang so calm, he was relieved. We will arrive at the Bloodground Abyss soon. Let's find an inn to stay in today and start training tomorrow. How about it? Di Beichen said. Chapter 998. Gradually, the silhouette of the Bloodground Abyss became clearer and clearer in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Finally, the two of them arrived at the Bloodground Abyss. As soon as they entered the city, Bailey Hongzhuang smelled the stench of blood in the air. It was very faint, but it was everywhere. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen entered the city, many gazes gathered on them. Another two newborn calves who aren't afraid of tigers have come. TSK, this man and woman are both very outstanding in appearance. It's been a long time since I've seen fresh goods like them. They must be young people from some organization who have come to train. Pay attention to whether there's anyone protecting them. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes swept over the people around her. From their gloomy and lazy eyes, she could feel the other party's hidden fierceness and cruelty. They had only glanced at her casually, but she could sense the heavy killing intent. It was evident that the cultivators who lived here had already fused this killing intent into their bones. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked into the city, directly ignoring the gazes in the surroundings. Bailey Hongzhuang had already prepared herself for everyone to be an enemy. Only then could they properly stay in the Bloodground Abyss. Everyone's eyes flickered with interest when they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were only two people. After staying in the blood-ground abyss for so long, they had only seen a few evil and ugly people. As a result, their eyes lit up when they saw two fresh little fellows. It's been a long time since I've seen such a handsome young man. A charming woman looked at Di Beichen with seductive eyes. Clearly she was filled with interest in Di Beichen. Haha, Bai Feng, this man already has a sweetheart. The little girl is much prettier than you. Forget it. A man mocked. How can a little girl's charm compare to mine? Bai Feng puffed out her proud chest and used her actions to express everything. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with disgust. Not only were the people here cruel, but their worldview had also been destroyed. Such unbridled words could not be heard in other cities. However, she could sense that Bai Feng was not weak. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and turned a deaf ear to Bai Feng's words. He had seen such people in the blood-ground abyss before, but he had been wearing a mask at that time, and the other party had been flirting with another young man. However, this kind of woman was like a poisonous snake. He still remembered how the young man had died at the hands of this kind of woman. Young master, I'm talking to you. Why are you ignoring me? Bai Feng saw that Di Beichen was walking without looking sideways as if he had not heard her at all. She immediately flashed and stood in front of Di Beichen. Bai Feng cultivated a type of dual cultivation technique. Therefore, she needed to find a man to cultivate with her. Unfortunately, the men in the blood-ground abyss were not good-looking. She was only interested in these young men. Just their moist skin and exuberant vitality made her extremely fond of them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferently at Bai Feng in front of her. Just from Bai Feng's style, she could tell that Bai Feng cultivated a despicable cultivation method. Chapter 999. Bai Feng smiled provocatively when she met Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze. However, there was a trace of jealousy in the depths of her eyes. This woman's looks could easily arouse jealousy in others. Bai Feng was already quite famous in the blood-ground abyss. After all, in a place like the blood-ground abyss where perverts gather, most of the cultivators there were men and very few women. Hence Bai Feng was like a fish in water here. She never thought that such a beautiful young lady would arrive today. Bai Feng noticed that many men were almost drooling. The next moment Bai Feng stretched out her hand and hooked it towards Di Beichen. Although this kind of young girl was young, she lacked a bit of charm. She would take away this little girl's sweetheart and see what this little girl would do. However, just as Bai Feng reached out her hand, Di Beichen's icy voice rang out, "Scram!" It was a simple word, but it was filled with his usual domineering air. There was no room for rejection. His voice was cold and resolute. A murderous aura that was not inferior to anyone in the blood-ground abyss began to fill the air. Bai Feng was stunned when she sensed the thick and violent murderous aura. She never thought that this man would have such a terrifying murderous aura despite his young age. She had misjudged him. Many cultivators on both sides of the street were lazily watching the scene. However, the murderous aura that Di Beichen had unleashed had shocked them as well. It seems that these two young people were quite different from the young and inexperienced ones they usually saw. Most young men would blush when they saw Bai Feng in this state and would not know what to do. How could this man be so resolute? "Little sir, you have quite the temper. I have no ill intentions towards you." Bai Feng did not believe him. After all, she had defeated many young men and she was most interested in this young man. It was not her style to give up so easily. As she spoke, Bai Feng reached out her hand towards Di Beichen again. The smile on her face grew even more seductive. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent as she watched this scene. Di Beichen's evildoer face was indeed very attractive to women. "This woman is going to be in trouble," Bai Shi said slowly as he looked at Bai Feng with a hint of pity in his eyes. They had known Di Beichen for a long time and had a certain understanding of Di Beichen's character. This woman thought that she was very charming, but she didn't know that Di Beichen didn't like her at all. Xiao He nodded slightly. This woman is really digging her own grave. It really pitied Bai Feng. This woman still thought that she was very charming. However, it wondered what kind of expression she would have when she was taught a lesson by Di Beichen. Di Beichen's bone-chilling gaze landed on Bai Feng. In the next instant, Di Beichen's hand grabbed Bai Feng's neck and lifted her up. Bai Feng's eyes widened and a look of disbelief flashed across her eyes. However, she reacted very quickly. After staying in the Bloodland Abyss for so long, what kind of things had she not seen? Almost at the same time, the origin energy within Bai Feng's body exploded. She then attacked Di Beichen with both hands without any hesitation. However, just as Bai Feng was about to make her move, Di Beichen suddenly exerted force in his right hand and threw Bai Feng into the air. At the same time, his figure flashed and his leg flew towards her. Thump. Chapter 1000. Di Beichen stood on the spot with an indifferent expression. His extraordinarily handsome appearance did not reveal the slightest bit of wretchedness. He was like a perfect statue, as if he had not been the one who had attacked earlier. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand again as the two of them slowly walked forward. Meanwhile, Bai Feng, who had fallen to the ground, did not get up for a long time. No one knew if she was dead or alive. Upon seeing this, the crowd withdrew their mocking gazes. They never thought that these two newcomers would have such powerful cultivations at such a young age. Bai Feng's power was naturally not considered to be very powerful in the blood-ground abyss. However, Di Beichen had been able to beat Bai Feng to such a state after just one exchange. This was enough to show that his power was not to be underestimated. No one dared to underestimate Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Feng anymore. In their hearts, they were secretly wondering where these two monsters had come from. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint and moving smile. Every time Di Beichen attacked, it would shock everyone to the extreme. His lightning-fast attacks, not giving his opponent any chance to retaliate, were truly breathtaking. Di Beichen is so handsome. Bai Shi's beady eyes sparkled. If it were them, they would also need to expend quite a bit of effort to defeat Bai Feng. However, Di Beichen's attacks were so clean and efficient that it really yearned for him. Xiao He and Xiao Bai nodded in unison. Bai Feng was also no match for them. However, if it were them, they would not be as suave as Di Beichen. When will I be able to charm tens of thousands of girls with a single attack? Xiao He could not help but sigh. However, with its looks there was probably no hope. Hearing the three beasties' words, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened. You guys can also charm tens of thousands of girls with a single attack. That's not bad, huh? Xiao Bai laughed. There are a lot of people like that in the blood-ground abyss. It's very likely that someone will appear out of nowhere to pick a fight. However, against someone like that, we can just defeat them directly. Di Beichen turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. In the blood-ground abyss, one could only deal with things with violence. The scene just now was very sudden. He didn't know if Hongzhuang was frightened, but when Di Beichen saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was still in the mood to joke, he was completely relieved. It seemed that his wife was indeed not someone ordinary women could compare to. Very quickly, Bailey Hongzhuang and Yu Yang settled down at the inn. The cost of lodging in the blood-ground abyss far exceeded that of other places. The price could be said to be astronomical. However, the price didn't surprise Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichen calmly paid and went up to the second floor with Bailey Hongzhuang. Many of the people in the blood-ground abyss were bandits who were being hunted down, so money was not a problem here. At the same time, because the blood-ground abyss was rarely visited by people, everything here was extremely expensive. Inside the room. Wife, this is the blood-ground abyss. How do you feel? Di Beichen stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the slightly dark red sky outside the window. Her beautiful face was filled with amazement. This is a very magical place. Everything seems to be dyed with the color of blood. The blood-ground abyss is a place dyed red by blood. The smell of blood in the air doesn't dissipate for a long time. Even the sky is faintly red, reflecting the glow of the blood-red pagoda. Chapter 1001. Looking at the luxurious and special pagoda, Bailey Hongzhuang could feel that in the entire blood-ground abyss, this pagoda had the densest blood qi. The tower was the source of the blood-ground abyss, so she wanted to see what it was like inside. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around to face Di Beichen. Her clear eyes flickered with a dazzling light. Beichen, I'll decide on my own training from now on. Unless it's a critical moment, don't interfere. How about that? She needed to train herself if she wanted to increase her strength. Whether it was finding opponents or experiencing danger, it was something she had to experience in order to increase her cultivation. Di Beichen's strength was naturally much stronger than hers, and if she wanted to catch up with Di Beichen's pace, she needed to work even harder. As a result, she needed to rely on her own strength to train here. Di Beichen's eyes, as deep as the sea, were filled with love and affection. His heart was shaken by the persistence in Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful eyes. It was an unyielding and strong heart. He understood what Hongzhuang wanted, and he knew even better that he could not interfere so easily if he wanted to help Hongzhuang. Di Beichen nodded when he thought of that. All right, I promise you. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened when she heard Di Beichen's reply. She wrapped her arms around Di Beichen's neck and gave him a big hug. Although it was her first time in the blood-ground abyss, she could understand why Di Beichen had brought her here. She would never lack opponents in such a cruel and murderous place. Her strength, martial skills and battle skills would all be tempered enough. At the same time she would meet even more opponents. For the current her, it was undoubtedly the best place to gain experience. Wifey, have a good rest today. Tomorrow I will not interfere with your training. Di Beichen slowly said, his deep and bright eyes still rippling with love and affection. All right, you rest well too. After rushing for several days, Bailey Hongzhuang was also travel-worn. She needed to freshen up and rest. Compared to the previous journey, the journey this time was the most arduous. The snowy ground was cold and there was no shelter in the outskirts. They could only endure the cold wind and the icy cold all the way. They did not rest along the way because resting in such an environment was undoubtedly extremely dangerous. Not only did they need to be wary of the occasional monster, they also needed to be wary of any cultivators heading to or leaving the blood-ground abyss. After closing the window, Bailey Hongzhuang washed up and began to meditate. After cultivating on the wyvern and resisting the wind cave, she could feel that her elemental energy was constantly increasing. Now, her primary energy was not far from the 4th level of the Red Realm. With just a little more, she could steadily break through to the 4th level of the Red Realm. This was the advantage of going out to train. If she cultivated on her own, it would not be so easy to improve her cultivation. While Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating, the 3 beasts were also cultivating together. Their master needed to improve her strength, so they naturally could not fall behind. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating at night, she suddenly found that after a long journey, now that she had calmed down and cultivated, her strength had directly broken through to the 4th level of the Red Realm. Chapter 1002. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang exited the state of cultivation. After a night of cultivation, her strength had completely stabilized at the 4th level of the Red Realm. When Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang, a handsome smile appeared on his face. Wife, congratulations on your breakthrough. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It's all thanks to you for accompanying me out to gain experience. If you want to improve your cultivation, experience is inevitable. The reason why my cultivation improved so quickly is that my master used to take me out to gain experience. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes slightly, and a sly look flashed across her eyes. Your master must have allowed you to gain experience by yourself back then, right? Hearing this, Di Beichen nodded slightly. His eyes were distant as if he was looking at his past self. Speaking of which, the reason why his cultivation could be improved to such a level was because of the bitter experience he had in the past. It was a period of time that he could not bear to look back on. Although his master had accompanied him to gain experience, he had experienced all the dangers himself. All the difficulties were resolved by him. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a narrow escape from death. At that time he had complained about his master. However, when he grew up and saw his rapid improvement in strength, he also understood his master's painstaking efforts. If he wanted to improve his strength, he could not achieve good results through peaceful cultivation. The only way was to stimulate his own potential. Di Beichen laughed involuntarily. Those days back then, when I think back on it now, I feel helpless. Looking at Di Beichen's expression, the smile in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes deepened. Your master is very good to you. It was precisely because he was good to Di Beichen that his master chose not to help him. Presumably, his master, who was watching from the side, must have felt very distressed. Di Beichen smiled and nodded. Are you reminding me not to help you? My strength is very strong. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her little fist and winked at Di Beichen. She had always been confident in her own strength. The smile in Di Beichen's eyes gradually widened. He immediately grasped Bailey Hongzhuang's little fist that was waving in the air. He moved closer, lowered his head, leaned over and left a kiss on Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the handsome face in front of her, and her pretty face turned red. Who would have thought that Di Beichen would suddenly attack her? You have to be more careful when you're training. As long as you don't call me, I won't do anything. How about that? Di Beichen said slowly. Although his words were free and easy, his handsome face could not help but show some worry. Every year, countless cultivators died in the blood-ground abyss. Even he could not guarantee 100% safety. Now, even he himself could not be sure whether his decision to bring Hongzhuang here was right or wrong. However, accompanying his beloved woman as she grew up was a necessary process. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked out of the inn together. As they walked, Di Beichen also introduced the situation in the pagoda to Bailey Hongzhuang. This pagoda is a huge arena. As long as you can obtain 10 consecutive victories in the arena, you will have the opportunity to challenge the trial mission. Once you pass the trial mission, you will be able to go to the 2nd level. The first level has the largest number of cultivators, and their strengths are the most varied. You can first study your opponent's fighting strength and methods before you go on stage. Moreover, when a cultivator participates in the arena, we can also directly place bets to earn gold coins. It is a test of your eyesight. Chapter 1003. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up when she heard that bets could be placed here. This kind of betting was the best way to earn gold coins. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but the three beasts' eyes also flashed with excitement. They would never complain about having too much gold coins. Di Beichen left first, leaving the rest of the training to Bailey Hongzhuang. The pagoda was located in the center of the blood-ground abyss. Bailey Hongzhuang could see the tallest pagoda in the city when she raised her head. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang finally arrived in front of the pagoda. She saw strange runes all over the pagoda, emitting a mysterious power. It was as if there was a special chain that sealed the pagoda. Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that there was a red plaque inlaid with gold in the center of the pagoda. There were 3 words written on it: Blood Pagoda. Seeing the 3 words Blood Qi Tower, Bailey Hongzhuang also had a look of understanding. Just as Di Beichen had said, this blood-ground abyss had a mysterious inheritance, the Blood Qi Field, and the name was the same. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at the entrance of the Blood Pagoda, 2 figures stopped her. You have to pay 10,000 gold coins to enter. The 2 burly men had sturdy figures. They didn't wear any clothes on their upper bodies, only a simple piece of animal skin wrapped around their upper bodies, revealing their bulging muscles. In this icy land of the extreme north, dressing like this was really shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with surprise. She did not expect that she would have to pay such a high fee to enter the Blood Pagoda. Just standing outside the door, she could feel the bustling atmosphere inside. The rumor that the people in the blood-ground abyss were all rich people was not false at all. Bailey Hongzhuang did not hesitate and immediately took out 10,000 gold coins to hand to the 2 men. With her current wealth, 10,000 gold coins were nothing. The 2 of them took the gold coins and handed a blood-red token to Bailey Hongzhuang. Go in. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the blood-red token in her hand and saw that it was also wrapped in gold. The complex and mysterious patterns were the same as the totem on the Blood Qi Tower. Come to think of it, the Blood Qi Tower was truly a wonderful place. After Bailey Hongzhuang put the red token into her Qingquan bag, she walked into the Blood Qi Tower. As soon as she entered, a burst of noise enveloped her ears. Defeat him. Defeat him. Fight. Hit him hard. Cheers rang out one after another, filled with passion and passion. Just by listening to the cheers, one could imagine how lively the scene was. Bailey Hongzhuang understood that this was the arena that Di Beichen had mentioned. This was the most lively place in the Blood Qi Tower. As Bailey Hongzhuang approached, a huge arena appeared in her line of sight. The round arena was cast from hard granite and was surrounded by red iron railings to prevent the fighters from falling below the arena. Below the arena was a circular viewing area that could accommodate hundreds of people. Rows of spectators were already seated. They were either holding drinks or hugging beauties. Their eyes were filled with bloodthirst and excitement. Sometimes they would clap the table and cheer because of the performance in the arena, and sometimes they would curse. It was very noisy. Seeing this scene at first glance, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart could not help but be shocked. Chapter 1004. However, it was as if they could not feel any pain as they continued to attack each other fiercely. Every time they collided, it was as if they wanted to take each other's life. Every time the 2 of them collided, the crowd below would cheer and cheer loudly. The bright red wine contrasted with the bright red blood, giving off a bloody and demonic feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everything around her. Even though she had already prepared herself mentally at this moment, after seeing such an exaggerated scene, her heart still trembled a little. The 2 people on the stage had already given it their all, but they continued to collide with each other fiercely. Perhaps the cheers below the stage were the source of their strength. On the other hand, Bailey Hongzhuang could not see the slightest bit of pity or worry in the eyes of the excited crowd in the spectators' stands. There was only excitement and madness. In a place like this that was filled with blood and desire, perhaps all humanity had already been obliterated. Compared to the sigh in her heart, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression did not reveal any abnormalities. On the contrary, her pitch-black eyes were cold and indifferent. Just by looking at the environment here, she understood that it was useless to reason with the people here. Only the strongest fist was the absolute truth. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang entered the spectator stands, all eyes gathered on her. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance was simply too stunning. Anyone who saw her would have the urge to take a second look. The man who was hugging the beauty in the spectators' stands had quietly let go of Bailey Hongzhuang when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang appear. His eyes were drooling as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Oh, when did such a tender beauty come to the blood-ground abyss? I didn't hear about it. This is the first time I've seen this beauty. It must be her first time in the Blood Chi Tower. How refreshing. Let me tell you, I've taken a liking to this woman. Don't you dare fight with me. Who do you think you are? The group of men had already started their own competition. The number of women in the blood-ground abyss was not as high as the number of men, let alone such a peerless beauty. It simply made their eyes light up. Master, these people are simply too disgusting. Xiao He frowned. Just by listening to these people's words, it had the urge to annihilate them all. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent. The people here are all like this. As long as you don't care, it's fine. She knew very well that since they had come to the blood-ground abyss, this kind of situation was unavoidable. Di Beichen was a man. Yesterday, a woman like Bai Feng had appeared. What more a woman like her? After yesterday's incident, she already understood these things. No matter what the other party said, she would just pretend that she didn't hear it. As for those who had come looking for trouble, there was no need to say anything. In the blood-ground abyss, talking was useless. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to have already adapted to this situation, Little Black and Little White looked at each other. Even their master had no opinion. What opinion could they have? Looks like they'll have to get used to this situation. They'll probably run into people like this frequently during their stay in the blood-ground abyss. Bailey Hongzhuang found a seat and sat down. She completely ignored the people behind her who were arguing because of her. There was a rule in the Blood Chi Tower. Apart from the arena, no one was allowed to fight anywhere else. Chapter 1005. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell upon the two people who were fighting in the arena. The difference in power between the two was not too great. After this round of battle, the outcome would be decided. Master, who do you think will win? Xiao He's eyes flickered with excitement. When it comes to matters like this, its eyesight was very accurate. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang carefully observed the two people in the arena. One of them was tall and sturdy while the other was much thinner. Both of them were in their 20s and their bodies emitted a fierce aura. Bailey Hongzhuang had been paying attention to the situation of the two people's fight ever since she had entered the Blood Chi Tower. Based on the ferocity of the fight, it was obvious that the tall and sturdy man was more powerful and had greater strength. However, between the two of them, she was more optimistic about the thinner one. This was because she noticed that this person's movements were more nimble. Under the circumstances where the difference in power between the two of them was not too great, the tall and sturdy man had to expend far more energy than the thin man. Once the fight reaches its climax, the tall and sturdy man would not be able to hold on any longer. This way the victor would be decided. The thin man will win. Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and beautiful face rippled with a confident luster. Her lips curved slightly. She was very confident in her answer. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, Xiao He was shocked. It never thought that its master's eyesight would be so accurate. Its thoughts were exactly the same as its master's. I think so too. Xiao He smiled. Even though Xiao Bai had not said a word, one could tell from its expression that it had the same answer. Even though the two of them had been staying in the Chaos Ring for all these years and were lacking in the ways of the world, they were not careless when it came to matters of battle. One look was all it took for them to determine the outcome. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened. In the past, she had often sparred with others. Hence, she only needed one look to determine the strength of these two people. Through these people's fight in the arena, she would be able to gain a better understanding of the blood chi field. If she were to make a rash move without understanding the situation, it would be extremely unwise. Bang! A loud sound of a heavy object falling to the ground rang out, and a man on the stage fell heavily to the ground. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang expected, the man who fell was the burly man. However, when the man fell to the ground, panting heavily and unable to resist, the skinny man leaped up and stomped on the burly man's body. Pooh! The burly man spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His eyes gradually lost focus, and his life force also gradually disappeared. The entire arena was almost dyed red with blood, and a strong smell of blood permeated the air. However, after killing one person, the skinny man excitedly raised his hands and announced his victory to everyone. Wow! A loud cheer rang out from the spectator stands. This was the cheer of the victor. Haha, well done. The cultivators who had made a fortune because they had placed their bets correctly smiled and gave the skinny man a thumbs up. They would be able to live freely for a while. On the other hand, the cultivator who made the wrong bet was not in such a good mood. His entire face turned gloomy. Chapter 1006. The thin man walked out of the arena with a victorious smile on his face. Obviously he did not think much of the pain. Soon after the man walked into the arena, another man walked into the arena and immediately said to the audience, "Who wants to fight with me?" When the man walked into the arena, the voice of the referee of the Blood Chi Tower immediately sounded. Zheng Zisher, level 2 of the Red Realm, has participated in the Blood Chi field 7 times and won 7 times. After hearing the man's strength, there was a short commotion in the stands. Obviously many people were eager to have a try. Level 2 of the Red Realm was not weak in the Blood Chi Tower. If they were not strong enough, there was no need to go up and be tortured. Zheng Zisher's face was filled with a proud smile. He looked at the people under the high platform provocatively, waiting to see who would be able to fight with him. After learning about Zheng Zisher's strength, it was not long before another man walked into the arena and stood opposite Zheng Zisher. "I'll fight with you." Zheng Zisher looked at the man in front of him indifferently and nodded, "Okay. Be careful not to be beaten by me." When the two men decided to fight, the competition did not start immediately. The referee of the Blood Chi Tower immediately came over and recorded the identity of the other man. This was the practice of the Blood Chi field. Before each competition, the Blood Chi field would collect the information of the two contestants and let the audience place their bets. Similarly, the two contestants would also receive a certain percentage of gold coins after winning the competition. Wang Xiaojun, level 2 of the Red Realm, has participated in the Blood Chi field 5 times and won 5 times. "Now you can place your bets." Zheng Zisher waved his fist and said, "I will win, ha." Wang Xiaojun was not to be outdone. "I will be the real winner." The audience looked at the two men for a moment, and soon the audience went to the counter of the Blood Chi field to place their bets. Obviously, only by placing bets could they arouse the audience's interest. Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at Zheng Zisher and Wang Xiaojun. Zheng Zisher was slightly older than Wang Xiaojun by 2 years. Although their strength was the same, she was afraid that Zheng Zisher was more experienced. If she guessed correctly, Zheng Zisher should have reached the second level of the Red Realm longer than Wang Xiaojun. Logically speaking, Zheng Zisher should have a higher chance of winning, but Bailey Hongzhuang chose Wang Xiaojun because she saw a flash of malice and viciousness in Wang Xiaojun's eyes. Obviously Wang Xiaojun was also a wolf, but it was not as obvious as Zheng Zisher. Because Zheng Zisher had acted too obviously and acted rather arrogantly, it was very likely that he would underestimate his opponent. After weighing the pros and cons of the two, Bailey Hongzhuang decided to bet on Wang Xiaojun. After all, other than strength, there were many other factors that could affect the outcome of a battle. When Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the counter, she also saw the betting ratio of the two. Zheng Zisher's odds were 1:5, while Wang Xiaojun's odds were 1:3. Just by looking at the odds, it could be seen that most people were optimistic about Zheng Zisher, and only a few people were optimistic about Wang Xiaojun. Even so, Bailey Hongzhuang did not hesitate at all when she placed her bet. 50,000 gold coins bet on Wang Xiaojun's victory. Chapter 1007. Just from Bailey Hongzhuang's unfamiliar appearance, everyone was certain that it was her first time at the Blood Chi Tower. There were many young cultivators who came to the Bloodground Abyss to train. They were either proud or fearful, but there were very few who were as indifferent as Bailey Hongzhuang. From beginning to end, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't seem to be too surprised by all this. She was calm and unhurried, and when she placed her bets, she was even more generous. Although the cultivators in the Bloodground Abyss didn't lack money, it was rare for someone to place a bet of 50,000 gold coins. What everyone was more curious about was whether Bailey Hongzhuang was very confident in her own judgment, or if she was just being generous. Her first move was such a high price. In my opinion, this girl most likely comes from an extraordinary family. She's used to being generous. It's not like we haven't seen such a young cultivator before. Indeed, but after losing a few times, this girl should understand that if her judgment isn't accurate enough, she'll lose everything here. Zheng Zisher is clearly stronger than Wang Xiaojun. 50,000 gold coins are wasted. Everyone's words were filled with ridicule and contempt. They were all from the grassroots and didn't have a good impression of the young disciples from some large forces, especially when they saw some arrogant young people. Just by looking at their high and mighty appearance, they wanted to make them disappear from this world. After all, the Bloodground Abyss wasn't a place where the children of rich families could run rampant. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression remained the same when she heard everyone's discussion. Everyone had their own judgment. Only when the final result was out would they know who had the best judgment. Not long after, everyone finished placing their bets. Zheng Zisher and Wang Xiaojun also set up their battle array on the stage. As for the cultivators in the spectator stands, their eyes lit up with interest. Obviously, every battle brought them a different kind of excitement. Begin. Following the referee's order, the origin energy within Zheng Zisher and Wang Xiaojun's bodies surged out. Both of their faces revealed a fierce expression as their tyrannical attacks mercilessly attacked each other. Bang! The two of them went back and forth, and tyrannical attacks continued to erupt. Bailey Hongzhuang watched the battle between the two. Obviously, these two came from an unorthodox background and didn't have professional fighting skills. This kind of brutal fighting style was more like that of mercenaries. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't surprised by this. In the entire Xingxian continent, this kind of cultivator occupied the majority. Similarly, these cultivators had very few cultivation resources in the process of cultivation. Being able to reach the second level of the Red Realm was enough to prove that their cultivation talent was not weak. It was even difficult for them to learn martial arts skills. But it was this kind of close combat could make people more hot-blooded. Zheng Zisher beat him. Kill him. Wang Xiaojun, did you not eat? The cultivators in the spectator stanzas were constantly yelling. Were their bets, they were Zisher's thays. However, based on the current situation of the battle between the two, it was clear that Zheng Zisher had the upper hand. On the other hand, Wang Xiaojun had been suppressed and beaten, and had almost no chance to fight back. Master, this Wang Xiaojun's performance is not very good. Chapter 1008. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly when she heard Baisher's curious question. It had only been a short time since Baisher was born. Although his strength had increased very quickly, he had not experienced many battles. Therefore, he could not make a very good judgment about this battle. However, she believed that Baisher would understand after watching the battle in the blood aura field for a period of time. The battle has only just begun. Even if Zheng Zisher has the advantage, the result cannot be determined to be his victory. There are many situations where the result can be reversed. Baisher was still a little dazed when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's answer. Looking at Baisher's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Baisher's head and explained. From the current situation, Wang Xiaojun is indeed at a disadvantage. He has been suppressed by Zheng Zisher. However, have you noticed that Zheng Zisher's strength is very strong, but his attacks have not caused much damage to Wang Xiaojun? Moreover, Zheng Zisher has also sensed this. Therefore, he has been fighting more and more frequently and has been using more Yuanli. His face is already showing an anxious state. On the other hand, Wang Xiaojun's expression has not changed. Compared to Zheng Zisher, his consumption is very small. Until now, Wang Xiaojun has not found an opportunity to attack. However, once Zheng Zisher has exhausted himself, he will find an opportunity. That will be the moment when the victor will be decided. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flickered with wisdom. The battle situation was as she had expected. Wang Xiaojun's temperament was better. Even though the battle had not ended, she could already judge the result. Baisher finally understood after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation. The confusion in his eyes gradually disappeared. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang finished her explanation, a man appeared beside Bailey Hongzhuang. Miss, this is your first time in the blood aura field, right? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at the man standing in front of her. The man was dressed in white, which was the same color as her clothes. The man's long hair was tied up high, revealing a handsome face. The corners of his mouth were curled up with a smile that he thought was elegant, but his eyes were filled with lust and greed. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the man. To be honest, this man's appearance was not bad in the bloody ground abyss, but he wasn't considered handsome outside. At most, he could be considered average. However, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a little helpless at the man's self-proclaimed elegance and coquettishness. What's the matter? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly, her voice cold and distant. Song Mingjie was a little surprised by Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude. However, with Bailey Hongzhuang's beauty, she indeed had the right to put on airs. He endured it. I am Song Mingjie, and I would like to make friends with you. To be precise, I want you to be my woman. A mocking and complacent smile appeared on Song Mingjie's lips. His eyes impudently sized up Bailey Hongzhuang's body, revealing his lust and filthy intentions. Fuck, where did this idiot come from? Xiao He could not help but curse. This man was simply too disgusting. His words were even more disgusting. I've seen weirdos, but I've never seen such a weirdo. Xiao Bai clenched her fists as her eyes filled with anger. Chapter 1009. When the people in the stand saw Song Mingjie walk to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, their eyes lit up with interest, and many of them even whistled. Song Mingjie could be considered to have a certain reputation in the blood-ground abyss. This reputation was not because of his strength, but because he was a rapist and countless beauties had fallen into his hands. Usually, Song Mingjie would brag about his knowledge and gratitude to different beauties, which also allowed him to make a group of friends who shared the same rotten tastes. At this moment, such a beauty had suddenly appeared in the blood-ground abyss, so they naturally wanted to know if Song Mingjie's trick would work. With Song Mingjie's experience with women, I'm afraid this lady will fall into his hands soon. That's true. Even if this lady doesn't agree, just Song Mingjie's bewitching fragrance will make this woman surrender. There's going to be a show to watch again. After Song Mingjie makes his move, we might be able to take advantage of it. Some of the women looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with eyes filled with jealousy and dissatisfaction. Bailey Hongzhuang had stolen their limelight as soon as she arrived, so they naturally wished that Bailey Hongzhuang would fall into Song Mingjie's hands. Compared to what Song Mingjie had done, the battle between the two of them in the ring was not so important. Looking at Song Mingjie who was in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes were filled with disgust and disdain. Scram. Speaking another word to a shameless person like Song Mingjie was a waste of time. However, after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, Song Mingjie did not show any displeasure. On the contrary, the smile on his face became even brighter. As a rapist, he had long been used to such rejection. The more severe the rejection, the more he would feel when she finally fell into his hands. Beauty, don't be so ruthless. Song Mingjie was full of smiles. I've always been very patient with beauties like you. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile, but her words became even colder. I've never been interested in scum like you. Scum? Song Mingjie frowned. Then he smiled and said, that's right. I am a scum. However, I will make you fall in love with me. Scram. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face was covered with frost, and she no longer had any patience to talk to Song Mingjie. Against such a shameless person, any verbal attack would be meaningless. If it weren't for the fact that fighting was prohibited in the Blood Chi Tower, she would have already killed this loathsome scum. Don't make me say it a third time. Bailey Hongzhuang's cold words were full of threat and murderous intent. Her voice was resolute, her clear eyes blooming with a dazzling brilliance. A fierce and resolute aura filled the air. Song Mingjie wanted to continue teasing Bailey Hongzhuang, but when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's icy cold eyes, he couldn't help but swallow his words. A trace of shock appeared in his heart. It was hard to imagine that such a young girl could have such a terrifying aura. It was really amazing. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang's family background was more powerful than they had imagined. However, the more he felt that her background was not simple, the more interested he was. In any case, in the blood-ground abyss, no force could openly deal with him. Chapter 10:10. You really have a personality. It doesn't matter if you don't like me now. You will like me at night. Song Mingjie smiled meaningfully and winked at Bailey Hongzhuang before leaving confidently. When everyone saw Song Mingjie come back like this, they chuckled and sighed. Song Mingjie, I didn't expect you to not be able to handle her. That's right. You were bragging to us before that there was no woman you couldn't handle. Now you can't handle her? Song Mingjie glanced at the crowd and said, this is the blood aura field. You can't fight. Women like men with strength. You know that. As Song Mingjie's voice fell, everyone present immediately understood and smiled knowingly. So that's how it is. Song Mingjie had always dealt with women at night. It seemed that this new girl would not be able to escape tonight's disaster. Facing everyone sizing up, Bailey Hongzhuang was indifferent. She naturally understood what Song Mingjie meant. However, as long as Song Mingjie dared to come tonight, she did not mind sending Song Mingjie to see the King of Hell. Verbal ridicule had no meaning. Bailey Hongzhuang also did not intend to explain to everyone. Only strength could prove everything. Song Mingjie looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with interest. Even though he had seen all kinds of beauties, he had to admit that Bailey Hongzhuang was really the most unique beauty. Bang! Following Zheng Zishi's scream, everyone saw that Wang Xiaojun, who had been suppressed, suddenly found an opportunity to fight back. A lightning-fast fist smashed heavily on Zheng Zishi's nose. Zheng Zishi's nose immediately broke and blood flowed out, blurring Zheng Zishi's face. The sudden pain caused Zheng Zishi to be stunned. In this short moment, Wang Xiaojun immediately seized the opportunity and attacked Zheng Zishi like a storm, not giving Zheng Zishi the slightest chance to catch his breath. Zheng Zishi quickly responded, But how could he be Wang Xiaojuan's opponent in a hurry? Suddenly, Zheng Zisher was defeated and was completely suppressed by Wang Xiaojun. The situation was the same as it was at the beginning of the competition. The only difference was that the target of the beating and the target of the beating were switched. This sudden change stunned many of the cultivators in the stands. They did not expect Wang Xiaojun to suddenly gain the upper hand. Zheng Zisher fight back. Zheng Zisher quickly counterattack. Are you stupid? Wang Xiaojun, well done. The cultivators who bet on Zheng Zisher's victory were anxious at this moment. They had bet a lot of money. And the cultivators who had already lost hope in Wang Xiaojun at this moment saw Wang Xiaojun suddenly reveal such power at this moment. Their eyes flashed with a strong sense of excitement, immediately cheering for Wang Xiaojun. As long as Wang Xiaojun won this round, they would make a huge profit. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a confident smile. When this round was over, her 50,000 gold coins would become 150,000 gold coins. Boom. Wang Xiaojun suddenly grabbed Zheng Zisher's hand and slammed Zheng Zisher onto the ground. At the same time, he mercilessly finished off Zheng Zisher with a kick. Winner takes all. Wang Xiaojun raised his hands, his face full of smiles. Chapter 10-11. Haha, the odds are 1 to 3. I've made a fortune. Earlier on you said that I didn't have a good eye. Now that Wang Xiaojun has won, I'm the one with the best eye. The cultivators who had won their bets were extremely pleased with themselves. They boasted arrogantly as if they were Zhuge Liang. On the other hand, the cultivators who had lost their bets had a gloomy look on their faces. When they saw how pleased they were with themselves, they looked at Zheng Zisher, who had collapsed on the stage. They could not wait to beat Zheng Zisher up again. After Wang Xiaojun walked down from the stage, the people from the Blood Qi Tower took Zheng Zisher's corpse away. From their indifferent looks, it was obvious that they were already used to the situation. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood why the cultivators in the Blood Qi Tower would only win and never lose. This was because once they lost, they would no longer have the chance to stand in the arena again. A different kind of emotion spread in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart. She could not understand. Although the rules of the Blood Qi Tower were very special, if one only wanted to obtain the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower, there was no need to kill all of the opponents. One only needed to defeat one's opponent to win 10 consecutive victories. However, the people here only wanted to take one's life. After pondering for a moment, she felt that this atmosphere should have nothing to do with the Blood Qi Tower. It was only because the people who gathered here were all ruthless people that the atmosphere had changed over time. Bailey Hongzhuang stood up. She was going to the counter to collect her reward. When Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the counter, the other party immediately handed her 150,000 gold coins. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately put the gold coins into her Qingkuan bag. Her elegant and refined face was calm and indifferent. She did not have the excitement and joy of someone her age. It was as if this was a very normal thing. The crowd then remembered that they had previously mocked Bailey Hongzhuang for not having a good eye. They did not expect the situation to take such a huge turn. At that moment, they could not understand whether Bailey Hongzhuang had seen through everything before placing the bet or if she was just trying her luck. With Bailey Hongzhuang's age, it was hard for them to believe that she had such good eyesight. However, if Bailey Hongzhuang was purely trying her luck, 50,000 gold coins was too much. In my opinion, this woman is definitely trying her luck. It's just that she's always been generous. That's not necessarily true. I think she's always been very confident in her own judgment. You don't believe me? Let's see if this woman's bet is right. Even though no one had much interaction with Bailey Hongzhuang still attracted everyone's attention. They were just waiting for Song Mingjie to be the first person to eat crabs. If it were any other woman, they would not think so much. However, this Bailey Hongzhuang's temperament was completely different from that of ordinary women. He was worried that if he provoked her, it would cause endless trouble. Therefore, they needed to observe the situation before making a decision. Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a hurry to enter the ring. This was her first time in the Blood Qi Tower. She needed to understand more before entering the ring. 10 wins in a row in a place where experts gathered was actually not a very simple matter. However, based on the current situation, she was still confident in her own strength. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang sat in the stands and watched the others compete. Occasionally she would place a bet. It was quiet and comfortable. Chapter 10-12. After staying in the Blood Qi field for a day, Bailey Hongzhuang had a certain understanding of the situation. As far as she was concerned, most of the cultivators competing on this floor were at the second or third level of the Red Realm, which did not pose much pressure to her. It would not be difficult for her to win 10 matches in a row. Xiantian cultivators were quite rare in other places, but in the Bloodland Abyss, even the weakest cultivators were at the Xiantian realm, but they were basically all in the Red realm. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was not very strong here, but it was not too weak either, so she adapted very well. Night slowly fell, and Bailey Hongzhuang also walked out of the Blood Chi Tower. On this day, although she spent 10,000 gold coins to enter the Blood Chi Tower, the gold coins she earned back had multiplied several times. It was really a big gain. In order to not attract too much attention, she did not bet on every match but only occasionally. This result also proved that her eyesight was very good. As Bailey Hongzhuang left the Blood Chi Tower, Song Mingjie also said goodbye to a group of bad friends. Tonight, he would be immersed in the land of tenderness again. Tomorrow you all just wait and see. Song Mingjie's face was full of confidence and complacency. Under his ecstasy fragrance, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely not have the slightest awareness, so naturally he would be able to capture her. That girl must know that you will be there tonight, so she must be prepared. In my opinion, you may not succeed. Everyone roared with laughter. Song Mingjie waved his hand indifferently. I, Song Mingjie, will let the other party know before I pluck her. It's just that over the years, no beauty that I have set my eyes on has been able to escape from my grasp. He had always been wandering among the flowers, so this kind of thing was very familiar to him. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was prepared, he would still catch Bailey Hongzhuang off guard. Seeing Song Mingjie so confident, the smile on the corners of everyone's mouth became a little more mocking. It seemed that they would have a good show to watch tomorrow. Master, that Song Mingjie still hasn't given up on you. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed with displeasure. It had discovered that Song Mingjie had been tailing them ever since they left the Blood Chi Tower. Clearly he wanted to know where its master lived. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with ridicule. Since he wants to die, then let him come. This kind of guy was obviously a bastard who had defiled many women. Getting rid of him could be considered as upholding justice for the heavens. Xiao Bai rubbed its hands. Although its master appeared calm, it knew that its master was angry. Once the master got angry, the consequences would be very serious. Song Mingjie was really courting death. Bailey Hongzhuang walked on the street unhurriedly. Her delicate face was covered with a layer of cold frost. She looked straight ahead, but there was a kind of aura that spread out. In this blood-ground abyss, it was impossible not to make a move. She could use this opportunity to make an example out of someone and let some people know that she was not easy to deal with. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang swagger back to the inn like this, Song Mingjie couldn't help but chuckle and shake his head. As expected of a young girl from some power. She thought that she was so great that she didn't care about anything. When she fell into his hands, he wanted to see if this woman could still be so cold. Thinking of this, Song Mingjie relaxed a little. It was the easiest for him to deal with this kind of inexperienced little girl. Chapter 10:13. Master, that guy has already left. After noticing that Song Mingjie had left, Xiao Hei turned to report to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. He will come tonight. Hearing this, Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai looked at each other. It seemed that it was time for the black and white double demons to perform again. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door and saw Di Beichen. There was a faint smile on his handsome face. Wife, how did you feel in the Blood Chi Tower today? I understood the real situation you were talking about. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips were slightly raised. Before, Di Beichen had told her how cruel the blood-ground abyss was. Today she had seen it thoroughly. She was afraid that every day there were countless cultivators who died in the blood ground. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang smile, Di Beichen nodded. This is the normal state of the blood chi field. But you will get used to it. He still remembered the first time he came to the blood ground abyss. Looking at the rivers of blood around him, his heart was shocked and he hated this place very much. Hongzhuang's performance was much better than he expected. It was even better than the first time he came to the blood ground abyss. This place is indeed very special. Fortunately, most of the cultivators are in the Red Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. If the cultivators here were stronger, then she would also be walking on thin ice here. The inheritance of the Blood Chi Tower can only be obtained by cultivators in the Red Realm. Therefore, most of the cultivators in the Red Realm are in the vicinity. However, the difference between the Blood-ground Abyss and the Demonic Abyss is that this is a gathering place for evil people. Therefore, many of the evil people here are not in the Red Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled. The cultivators I saw today are all in the Red Realm. Di Beichen smiled faintly. That's the Blood Chi Tower. Those cultivators who are beyond the Crimson Realm have no interest in the Blood Chi Tower, so they won't go there. Where are they? It's in another area of the Blood-Ground Abyss. Do you want to take a look? Di Beichen asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, her clear eyes filled with interest. Of course. Since he was already here, he naturally had to take a look. Di Beichen patted Bailey Hongzhuang's head lovingly. His wife had always been curious about everything. If it was any other ordinary woman, they would definitely be terrified upon learning about such a place. However, Hongzhuang didn't seem to have these problems at all. Let's go, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately took Di Beichen's hand and prepared to set off. However, Di Beichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang back and put his hands on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders. His deep eyes were filled with love and affection. Wife, you can't go there directly like this. Otherwise it won't be so easy for us to come back. Di Beichen smiled warmly. He knew very well how beautiful his wife was. In this area, Hongzhuang's appearance was not a problem. Although it would cause some trouble, it was also an opportunity to gain experience. Hongzhuang was not a person who liked to cause trouble. Therefore, it was not a bad thing for trouble to provoke her when the difference in strength was not great. Chapter 10:14. As Di Beichen's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood Di Beichen's meaning and immediately smiled tenderly. I understand, I'll disguise myself. You can wear a mask too, Di Beichen said. When he came to the Blood-Ground Abyss with his master, he wore a mask, but that was because he had not mastered the art of disguise. Last time he had seen how powerful Hongzhuang's disguise was. Perhaps a disguise would be more suitable. After all, wearing a mask would always attract a lot of attention and guesses. Once a disguise was used, it would be much more low-key. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. I'll change my appearance very quickly. Wait a moment. Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang quickly take out some materials and then quickly get busy on his face. After a moment, an unfamiliar and ordinary face appeared in front of Di Beichen. The woman in front of him was about 20 years old and had an ordinary appearance. It was as if she could not be found in a crowd. She did not have the outstanding appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang from before. How is it? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Di Beichen nodded without hesitation. Very good. This way no one will recognize your original appearance. I'll also help you change your appearance. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on Di Beichen's face. It had to be said that Di Beichen's face was no less attractive than hers. From Baifeng's actions, it could be seen that although there were not many women in the Blood-Ground Abyss, they were all very open. A man like Di Beichen would definitely be very attractive to them. Di Beichen nodded. He had wanted to use a mask, but since Hongzhuang was willing to help him change his appearance, she naturally did not mind. This time Bailey Hongzhuang did not mess around. Instead, she helped Di Beichen to disguise himself as an ordinary person. In this way the two of them would not attract attention. Bailey Hongzhuang had changed into a yellow dress. As a result, her appearance had completely changed. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked out of the restaurant together, Bailey Hongzhuang keenly discovered that Song Mingjie was in the vicinity. However, Song Mingjie did not reveal the slightest abnormality after seeing her. Obviously, Song Mingjie did not know that she was the person he had been staring at. With just this bit of ability, he was no match for her at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's glance was very natural, but Di Beichen still noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's action. That Song Mingjie is a flower thief. He is also a frequent visitor of the Blood-Ground Abyss. In the Snow Origin country he is also quite famous. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Previously, she felt that Song Mingjie was not a good person, but she did not expect that this guy was a flower thief. Most of the women in the Snow Origin country are beautiful. It is normal for him to like this place. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled mockingly. Flower-picking thieves had always been the target of scorn, everyone wanted to beat them up. But the flower-picking thief actually thought that he was romantic and unrestrained. It was really ridiculous. Indeed, every time Song Mingjie provoked someone he could not afford to provoke, he would stay in the Blood-Ground Abyss for a period of time. I have seen him here before. Di Beichen's expression was relaxed as if he was telling a joke. However, a cold light quietly appeared in the depths of his eyes. It was fine if Song Mingjie's actions had nothing to do with him, but Song Mingjie provoked Hongzhuang. Naturally, he was extremely disgusted. Chapter 10:15. This guy has already made me his target tonight. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with a mocking smile. She didn't put Song Mingjie in her eyes at all. As for the despicable methods used by rapists, she knew them like the back of her hand. As a doctor, she naturally had a certain level of understanding in this area. Moreover, she had always been very interested in the unknown. If Song Mingjie used these methods to deal with her, she would make Song Mingjie unforgettable for the rest of his life. He's just a clown. Di Beichen's voice was slightly cold. This kind of despicable and shameless guy, just mentioning his name was enough to make people lose their appetite. If Song Mingjie dared to use such despicable methods on Hong Zhuang, he would make Song Mingjie regret ever being born in this world. Bailey Hong Zhuang also noticed the change in Di Beichen's mood. She immediately smiled and said, "His tricks are useless against me. Don't worry." Although Di Beichen wasn't with her today, she knew that Di Beichen had been paying attention to her situation. Thinking about it, she was disgusted by Song Mingjie's actions, but Di Beichen should be even angrier. Hearing Bailey Hong Zhuang's words, Di Beichen nodded slightly. It seemed that Hong Zhuang was already prepared. Bailey Hong Zhuang followed beside Di Beichen as they walked towards the depths of the blood-ground abyss. The closer they got, the less cultivators Bailey Hong Zhuang found in the surroundings. Moreover, many people looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen with a trace of reverence when they saw the direction they were walking in. The blood-ground abyss is a very magical place. Although there are many evil people here, it is still a good place for many cultivators to train. Bailey Hong Zhuang raised her clear eyes slightly. She understood that Di Beichen definitely had his reasons for saying this. It looked like there would probably be an even more exciting scene here. After walking for a while, Bailey Hong Zhuang noticed that a memorial archway had suddenly appeared before them. It was like a brand new door. The streets behind the memorial archway became lively again. Even from a certain distance away, she could still sense the liveliness. It's here. Di Beichen gazed ahead as a trace of emotion appeared on his face. In the past, this place had been a nightmare to him. "Master, the auras of cultivators here are much stronger than those near the blood tower." A wisp of surprise appeared in Xiao Hei's eyes. She never expected that the blood-ground abyss would have such a place. The cultivators here were on a completely different level from the previous place. The blood energy here seems to be even denser than near the blood tower. It's a dangerous place. Xiao Bai exclaimed with surprise. Xiao Hei glanced at Xiao Bai. "Don't tell me you're afraid?" "Me? Afraid?" Xiao Bai chuckled. "What haven't I seen in the world? Why would I be afraid of such a small scene?" "That's more like it." Xiao Hei pursed her lips. Obviously, she was very satisfied with Xiao Bai's answer. The white lion's originally soft fur stood on end at this moment. Its eyes vigilantly scanned the surroundings. This was its natural reaction after sensing danger. Bailey Hong Zhuang stroked the white lion's fur when she sensed the change in it, making it feel slightly more at ease. She could also sense the unusual atmosphere, but she wasn't afraid. Di Beichen held Bailey Hong Zhuang's hand and smiled faintly. "It'll be fine." Chapter 10:16. Although the cultivators here are very strong, they don't like to kill innocent people as much as the cultivators near the Blood Chi Tower. Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a starry light. It was precisely because he was strong that he cherished his own life even more, and the frequency of his actions was a bit lower. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang also understood. The more powerful one was, the more they cherished their lives. Many famous experts would not easily attack again for this reason. However, this should only be relatively speaking. Just the blood aura that permeated the air was enough to prove that everything was not so simple. Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen walked slowly until they arrived at a restaurant. Di Beichen glanced at Bailey Hong Zhuang and the two of them walked in together. The restaurant was very lively. Everyone was chatting and joking with each other. When Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen walked in, everyone's eyes fell on them at the same time. After sizing them up for a moment, everyone had already shifted their gazes and continued to drink. Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes also quickly scanned all the cultivators in the restaurant. She could feel that although the cultivators did not continue to size them up, they were also paying attention to their every move from the corner of their eyes. After all, to the cultivators here, she and Di Beichen were unfamiliar faces. Similarly, Bailey Hong Zhuang also noticed that these cultivators seemed to be drinking and chatting casually, but their clothes and appearances were completely different from the cultivators in other cities. In this world of ice and snow, many cultivators were bare-chested or wore leather armor on their upper bodies, revealing their thick and strong arms. They were rough and unrestrained. Not only that, but one could also tell what kind of state they were in from the eyes and killing intent that they inadvertently revealed. Yes, it was precisely because of this that they were particularly unrestrained, drinking and eating big bowls of wine. This kind of scene could not be seen anywhere else except the blood-ground abyss. Di Beichen led Bailey Hongzhuang to an empty seat with ease and said, 2 cups of Bloody Mary. Right away. The waiter immediately responded. Here you only needed to shout out what you wanted, and the waiter would immediately prepare it for you. When Di Beichen ordered naturally, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that the gazes that had been paying attention to them had dissipated. Everyone was still minding their own business as if nothing had happened. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with surprise. Presumably, Di Beichen's actions let everyone know that it was not their first time here, so they stopped paying attention. Soon, the waiter held 2 glasses of wine and walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. 2 guests, please enjoy. After the waiter left, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the wine cup on the table. Inside the wine cup was a bright red liquid. Gently shaking it, it was magnificent and colorful, revealing a bewitching beauty. Looking at this cup of bright red liquid, Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes were filled with a trace of doubt. What exactly was this thing? She had never seen it before. Di Beichen smiled faintly, picked up the wine cup and drank it in one gulp. The familiar taste was not considered delicious, but it seemed to make him feel the past. Try it. Di Beichen chuckled. Chapter 10:17. The moment the bright red liquid entered Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth, Bailey Hongzhuang already knew what it was. Human blood. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said as her gaze fell on the bright and clean wine cup. There should be something else mixed in here, otherwise it would be very sticky. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flickered with a sharp light. It was not that she had never tasted human blood before, so she was no stranger to this taste. However, after this treatment, the bloody smell was immediately reduced. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang immediately identify what it was, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. In particular, Bailey Hongzhuang's indifference and calmness made him even more amazed. It seemed that Hongzhuang had experienced a lot in the past, otherwise she would not have been able to identify it so quickly. This at least proved that she had tasted it before. You know a lot about it. Di Beichen smiled faintly. At their level they had seen a lot of things and Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was already very outstanding. Thinking back, when he first tasted this Bloody Mary, he vomited in embarrassment, and his master laughed at him at that time. However, everyone who came to the blood-ground abyss should try a cup. Only then could they be considered to have truly come to the blood-ground abyss. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. I didn't expect the people of the blood-ground abyss to make it into a drink so brazenly. How amazing. When everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction after drinking it, their eyes were also filled with surprise. It seemed that this woman was born with the potential to be a bad person. In the blood-ground abyss, everyone's sense of beauty had become completely different. Delicate little girls filled them with disgust, while ruthless and heartless women filled them with admiration. This is one of the main characteristics of the blood-ground abyss. There is also a very mysterious trial here. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She didn't expect that there would be other trials in the blood-ground abyss apart from the Blood Chi Tower. Seeing Di Beichen's expression, she knew that this trial wasn't simple. You should first pass the trial in the Blood Chi Tower. As for the trial in the depths of the blood-ground abyss, now is not the time. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She understood that Di Beichen said that because she was not strong enough. The cultivators present were at least at the 5th level of the Red Realm, and many of them were at the Yellow Realm. It could be seen that her strength was indeed very weak here. Since she couldn't participate even if she understood it now, she might as well wait until her strength increased. Di Beichen's eyes were filled with admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang was really too mature. She didn't act like a 16-year-old girl at all. However, it was this special side of her that was even more unforgettable. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze swept over the others. Besides the Bloody Mary, is the other food here also the same? Di Beichen chuckled. You're right. There are such things, but most people eat animal or demon beast meat. The demon beast meat here is also excellent. Try it. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Although she was no stranger to these things, it didn't mean that she liked them. Chapter 10:18. Di Beichen ordered a silk twine turtle soup, a green ridge bear bone and a roasted ice-cold fish. The taste of demonic beast meat was much better than that of livestock. After being cooked, the demonic beast meat is filled with elemental energy and energy. After consuming it, it will be very beneficial to the bones and blood. More. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Demonic beast meat was a delicacy. Every time the demonic beast meat was sold in a restaurant, it would always be fought over and the price was also extremely high. The further one was from the demonic beast mountain range, the rarer the demonic beast meat was. Fortunately, the blood-ground abyss was filled with demonic beasts, and there were quite a few demonic beasts here. As long as one was strong enough, it would not be difficult to hunt them down. Soon the dish was served. The price of the demonic beast meat in the blood-ground abyss could be said to be sky-high, but the amount was sufficient. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh after tasting a mouthful. The taste was truly excellent. After eating the demonic beast meat, she felt a warmth in her internal organs as the energy in the meat was absorbed. Xiaohe, Xiaobai, and Baisha were already drooling. They rarely had the chance to eat such a delicacy. The three beasts immediately sat on the table and started eating without caring about their image. Everyone had noticed the three demonic beasts beside Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen from the beginning. Although they were somewhat surprised, they did not take it to heart. After all, in this blood-ground abyss there were strange people everywhere. Normal people were the real strange people here. These three demonic beasts all looked very furry and cute. Compared to some people who raised poisonous snakes and had venomous spiders by their side, this no longer shocked them. After having a satisfying meal, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang also walked out of the restaurant. At the very front of this street is the training ground. It's very dangerous. Standing on the street, Di Beichen pointed to the endless street and introduced it to Bailey Hongzhuang. Is it very hot there? Bailey Hongzhuang looked up, her clear eyes flashing with a wise light. She had a faint premonition that the reason why these people were dressed like this was related to the trial on the other side of the street. Wife, you're really too smart, Di Beichen exclaimed. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang could analyze so many things after just one meal. Her observation skills were amazing. Yes, there is a very magical place at the other end of the street. After you come out of the trial in the Blood-Chi Tower, we will go to the trial here together. Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang did not ask any more questions. She would come here one day. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the inn together. The faces of the three beasts were filled with satisfied smiles. This trip was really delightful. After returning to the inn, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also returned to their original appearances. Wife, that guy Song Mingjie will come to find you tonight, Di Beichen slowly said with a trace of worry in his handsome eyes. He understood Hongzhuang's strength. If Song Mingjie and Hongzhuang fought head-on, then he would not be worried at all. However, a sinister and cunning person like Song Mingjie would not fight head-on. Some of his underhanded methods were really hard to guard against. Beichen, don't worry, I can handle it. Chapter 10-19. Seeing how confident Bailey Hongzhuang was, Di Beichen nodded. Be careful. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and waved goodbye to Di Beichen before returning to the house. Seeing the door close, a dark light flashed across Di Beichen's handsome eyes. Even if Hongzhuang was very confident, he would still stand guard by the side. If Song Mingjie dared to do anything to his wife, he would make Song Mingjie suffer a fate worse than death. Master, that Song Mingjie is still opposite the inn. It's already late at night and I'm sure he'll be here soon. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and her lips curled into an enchanting smile. It looks like we should start making preparations. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's unfathomable expression, the three beasts looked at each other. They did not know what their master was planning to do. Master, how do you plan to deal with Song Mingjie? Xiaohe asked curiously. Xiaobai and Baisha also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. Master always had endless ways to deal with people. This time their eyes would probably light up again. I'll give him a taste of his own medicine. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows and her lips curled into a bright and sly smile. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang did not delay. She immediately took out a snuff bottle and let the three beasts sniff it one by one. Then she sniffed it herself and kept it in her heaven-earth bag. My incense is very powerful. I can't drug you guys. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and lit a stick of incense. A peach blossom fragrance immediately filled the room. It was faint but refreshing. The three beasts greedily sniffed the rich fragrance. This was not an ordinary fragrance. This peach blossom fragrance is really nice. I've never smelled such a nice smell before. White Lion's eyes flickered and his face was filled with intoxication. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled at the sight of the three beasts' joyful expressions. This is a knockout fragrance. Usually, one would faint immediately after smelling it. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasties immediately regained their senses. Their eyes were filled with amazement at the same time. They never thought that the effect of the knockout incense would be so powerful. Fortunately, Master had given them the antidote first. Otherwise, this fragrance would have been impossible to guard against. Alright, now let's wait for Song Mingjie to take the bait. Bailey Hongzhuang leisurely strolled to the side of the bed and sat down, leisurely lying on the bed. Her indifferent appearance did not reveal the slightest bit of nervousness. Song Mingjie had been waiting on the opposite side of the inn for the best opportunity to make his move. From the light that leaked out from Bailey Hongzhuang's room, he could faintly see Bailey Hongzhuang's figure. It seems that this young lady had been careless and had not paid any attention to him at all. However, this was a good thing for him. This way it would be more convenient for him to make his move. A young and inexperienced young lady was the easiest to deal with. Logically speaking, this young lady's looks were enough to topple cities and he should have paid attention to her. However, she had been overly confident. She could not blame him for being ruthless. At the thought of this, Song Mingjie's eyes flashed with excitement. Chapter 10:20. During this period of time, he had been wondering if it was time for him to leave the Bloodland Abyss and wander around. However, he did not know if the other party had not given up on looking for him. He did not expect such a lady to appear at such a time. It really made his heart itch unbearably. A top-grade beauty was better than many ordinary ladies. Song Mingjie slowly stood up and rubbed his hands. His eyes were filled with excitement. It was getting late. It was time for him to make his move. In the next moment, Song Mingjie immediately made his move. Dressed in black, it was difficult to distinguish him in the darkness. With a sweep of his body, Song Mingjie directly leaped onto the roof. His movements were extremely light and almost did not make any sound. His lightness skill was very good. This was a prerequisite for a rapist. Lightness skill was the most important. Gently lifting the roof tile, Song Mingjie found that the room was pitch black. However, with his extraordinary eyesight, he immediately found Bailey Hongzhuang resting on the bed. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang was still looking out of the window with her eyes wide open. Even in the night, he could still see her beautiful face clearly. After confirming that Bailey Hongzhuang was in the room, a smug smile appeared in Song Mingjie's eyes. It seemed that this lady was not without her guard up against him. However, this little bit of precaution was useless against him. Immediately after, Song Mingjie took out a soul-enchanting incense from his Jianghu bag. This was a great weapon that he had used to travel the world for many years. Many ladies had been defeated by this soul-enchanting incense. After lighting up the soul-enchanting incense, Song Mingjie blew it into the room. This soul-enchanting incense was colorless and odorless. It could make people unconscious without anyone noticing. When this lady woke up, everything would be completely different. Thinking of this, Song Mingjie felt an indescribable sense of pride. In the darkness, Bailey Hongzhuang's bright phoenix eyes flickered with a mocking light. She silently counted in her heart, 3, 2, 1. In the next second, a voice rang out on the roof. Clearly, Song Mingjie had been knocked out. Master, Song Mingjie has fainted on the roof. Xiao Hei's eyes sparkled with excitement. It seemed that Master was right. The effect of the knockout incense was extraordinarily good. Song Mingjie fainted uncontrollably after smelling it from such a high roof. Next, Song Mingjie would have to admit that he was unlucky. When Song Mingjie woke up, he felt weak and powerless all over. There was an indescribable sense of weakness. However, as soon as he opened his eyes, Song Mingjie saw Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him. Why are you here? His figure moved, and only then did Song Mingjie discover that he was actually tied tightly to the chair, and the essence energy in his body was even out of his control. Song Mingjie immediately recalled the situation before he arrived. He only remembered smelling a very enchanting fragrance. He thought it was the incense that Bailey Hongzhuang liked. After all, many women like to burn incense to make themselves appear more alluring. However, he never thought that he, a womanizer who had been in the pugilistic world for many years, would actually be enchanted by Bailey Hongzhuang. This was simply a disgrace. You're in my house and you're asking me why I'm here? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled slightly. She looked at Song Mingjie mockingly and swaggered over to sit opposite him. What do you want? Chapter 10:21. What do you think I'll do first? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent, the disgust in her eyes was obvious. As long as you let me go, I can promise you anything. Panic flashed across Song Mingjie's eyes. This situation of being controlled by others was the most despairing. He didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang had done to him to make him completely lose the power to resist. At this moment he could be said to be a fish on a chopping board. Weren't you very proud when you were teasing me today? Why have you become so cowardly now? Bailey Hongzhuang held a dagger in front of Song Mingjie and gestured, as if she was thinking about where to start. That was because I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I definitely won't dare to do it again. Song Mingjie hurriedly said. At this moment he was already regretting it. If he had known that Bailey Hongzhuang was such a difficult girl to deal with, he would never have chosen Bailey Hongzhuang to make a move on her. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't take Song Mingjie's words to heart at all. This kind of guy always had the same face when he was begging for mercy. He probably hated her to the core. Song Mingjie kept thinking. This was the first time this girl had come to the Bloodland Abyss. It seemed that her personality was still relatively easy to deceive. As long as he begged for mercy he might have a chance to live. Unfortunately, Song Mingjie had completely forgotten that he had always thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was easy to deal with. However, in the end he still fell into the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and smiled. Your begging seems very sincere. As long as you let me go today, from today onwards I'll be your dog. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I swear. Song Mingjie saw that there was hope for escape and continued to beg for mercy. As long as he could escape this calamity today, he would definitely teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson tomorrow. This time he had been careless. He didn't expect this woman to have such a strong knockout fragrance. Next time he would make Bailey Hongzhuang regret it. Master, this fellow's mouth is smeared with honey. You can't trust his words at all. Xiao He looked at Song Mingjie in disgust. This guy didn't have any backbone at all. At this moment he looked like he wanted nothing more than to kneel down and lick his master's shoes. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly as she stroked Xiao He's soft fur. She was well aware of Song Mingjie's personality. Rapists never had any moral integrity. Otherwise they wouldn't have done such despicable things. Are you really willing to listen to me? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You'll do whatever I say? Song Mingjie nodded repeatedly. That's right, I'll do whatever you ask me to do. Then, what if I told you to die? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting smile. It was less cold and more charming and more deadly seductive. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Song Mingjie's expression instantly turned ugly. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. He obviously didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to say such words. What do you mean by that? Song Mingjie's expression was ugly. Bailey Hongzhuang's words gave him a bad premonition. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders indifferently. I'm just thinking about how I should let you die. Song Mingjie's face turned pale. You and I have no enmity between us. Aren't you being too vicious? Chapter 1022. Song Mingjie, you seem to have forgotten that this is the blood-ground abyss. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled coldly. I can kill you if I don't like you. What's more, you have bad intentions towards me? You can only blame yourself for not having good eyesight. Song Mingjie looked at the coldness and murderous intent in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes and finally understood. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't the inexperienced little girl he thought. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang's viciousness didn't lose out to them at all. Speaking of which, he had indeed made a wrong move. Just as Song Mingjie was pondering, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a pill and fed it to Song Mingjie. What did you feed me? Song Mingjie immediately wanted to spit out the pill, but it melted in his mouth and he couldn't spit it out even if he wanted to. Other than poison, what else could I have fed you? Bailey Hongzhuang said casually and then lowered her head to check the things in Song Mingjie's Qingkuan bag. Looking at the bottles and jars, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. This Song Mingjie was indeed immersed in this path. The things inside were too complete. Even the rapist she had met before probably didn't have as many things as Song Mingjie. Song Mingjie was choked by Bailey Hongzhuang's casual words. He didn't expect this woman to say such words so casually. He had really misjudged her before. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly raised her head and her gaze fell on Song Mingjie. Song Mingjie, I think that you're a rapist. If you die so simply, it would be too uncharacteristic. So I've decided to give you a very unique death. Song Mingjie was startled. He had already accepted his fate after eating the poison. The most common thing to see in the blood-ground abyss was death. Although he didn't expect that the next person to die would be him, it was fine after accepting his fate. However, after listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, he felt that things were not as simple as they seemed. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a pink porcelain bottle from Song Mingjie's Qingkuan bag. You should like this thing very much, right? Seeing what Bailey Hongzhuang took out, Song Mingjie's face instantly turned ugly. He could almost imagine the effect of Bailey Hongzhuang feeding him the pill. He couldn't accept it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang ignored Song Mingjie's words and immediately stuffed the pill into Song Mingjie's mouth. If you die so normally, it would be too unbecoming of your identity. Since you like to drug girls so much, I'll let you have a taste of being drugged. Song Mingjia's face instantly turned extremely ugly. As the pill entered his body, he felt a dry heat spreading from his body. He was somewhat out of control. Normally, he would be extremely excited to see such a situation. However, at this moment he only wanted to die. Chapter 1023. If Song Mingjie had known that Bailey Hongzhuang had casually taken out the most effective pill, he would have vomited blood on the spot. Unfortunately, he was now delirious from the effects of the pill and had no idea what he was doing. The effect of the pill is really fast. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a sneer. She reached out and directly knocked Song Mingjie unconscious. She immediately untied the rope that tied Song Mingjie. Her figure flashed and Song Mingjie was placed on the street. Looking at Song Mingjie in the middle of the street, Bailey Hongzhuang clapped her hands. It was a success. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes and found Di Beichen staring at her from the second floor. Her face instantly broke into a joyful smile. In the next second, a white light flashed and Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in Di Beichen's room. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, Di Beichen had already wrapped his arms around her slender waist. The two of them stood in front of the window. Di Beichen hugged Bailey Hongzhuang from behind. "Wife, what did you do to Song Mingjie?" He had been paying attention to the movements in the room next door. From the moment Song Mingjie appeared, he had been fully focused on making preparations. If Hongzhuang could not handle it, he would immediately make his move. However, he did not expect that Hongzhuang would not be able to make Song Mingjie unconscious. Hongzhuang had actually made Song Mingjie unconscious so cleanly. Come to think of it, Song Mingjie had been a womanizer for so many years. It was probably the first time he had been drugged unconscious. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head to look at Di Beichen. Her smile revealed a hint of slyness, like a sly little fox. "I'm just giving him a taste of his own medicine. As for what kind of effect it will have, let's see." Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on Song Mingjie on the street. She had always been disgusted with womanizers. How many women's happiness had been ruined by their hands? At this moment, seeing Song Mingjie suffer the consequences of his own actions, she felt that he deserved it. If Song Mingjie had not brought these things with him, she would not have anything good to give Song Mingjie. Although she had made the sleeping incense herself, it was for emergencies. As for the pills and other despicable things, she really did not have them. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen immediately understood what Bailey Hongzhuang had done. However, this was really a good idea. Di Beichen suddenly felt that Song Mingjie's meeting with Hongzhuang could be considered as a blessing in disguise. If Song Mingjie was conscious, then he would definitely regret it. Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that Song Mingjie on the ground was slowly waking up. At this moment, Song Mingjie's face was flushed and he was delirious. As he walked, he began to take off his clothes. As a cultivator approached, Song Mingjie immediately went up to him like a cat that had seen a fish. The man was stunned when he saw Song Mingjie's appearance, but a sinister smile soon appeared on his face. In the next second, the delirious Song Mingjie was directly carried away by this person. Seeing Song Mingjie being carried away, Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She originally wanted to watch a good show and make Song Mingjie lose face in the blood grave abyss. Why was he carried away? Could this person be Song Mingjie's friend? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and murmured softly. "You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."